So the final round of GT World Challenge in 2024 went to Saudi Arabia for Jeddah, and obviously we're familiar with Jeddah being associated with F1. Now it's in GT World Challenge, and a track they officially claim as the fastest street track in the world. Garage59 invited me back for the final round, which was amazing to get the opportunity once again. And yeah, having done both Spa and Monza, to get the call up once again was just unexpected, to be honest. And yeah, fortunately this time around I had a bit more than a couple of days notice to prepare. I had a solid 2 or 3 weeks to get up to speed on the sim. Initially I started using Rennsport to practice Jeddah because I knew that that track had a very good version of the track from racing in ESLR 1 earlier in the year. Eventually I found a very good version for Assetto Corsa, which was better, and I used that to get my eye in on the track. And yeah, so on Tuesday night, got myself on a plane, flew to Saudi Arabia, landed that night, ready for what would be one of the most mental weeks of my entire life. And yeah, I was really intrigued with this one. With more time to prep, my fitness levels have gone up since Monza, a completely new track for all the drivers as well, so in a way a level playing field, you could say. How competitive would I be? Let's find out. So on Wednesday evening we got to walk the track. We actually saw it on the plane on the way in. We just looked out the window and saw it all lit up, so that was pretty cool. But it was much better to walk the track, get a sense of the elevation changes, the bumps, the curbs, all the things you can't really see on the sim. And yeah, Thursday had 2 90-minute practice sessions. Unfortunately in the first one I only got 1 outlap at the end of the session. There was just so many red flags that yeah, all the running was cut short for me. Fortunately I started the second session and got a solid 10 plus laps under my belt. And this is where I actually filmed my driver's eye video, which I uploaded last week. And I did, as I say, 10 plus laps, but the camera only unfortunately recorded 3 of those laps before it overheated. I mean, Saudi Arabia, really hot. The air temp was like 30 degrees, even at this time of year. And in the cockpit, it was more like 50 degrees. Fortunately, it's not fully broken, I don't think, so I can use it again. And yeah, in the end, I was about a second off the quickest McLaren. So not ideal, but as I say, I kept it in one piece. I knew exactly where I needed to improve. And yeah, with the official practice and pre-qualifying on the following day, the Friday, the goal was to reduce that gap before race day. On to Friday then, where this day went very, very well. The night before, I stayed at the track quite late just to look at data and video and just understand where I could find lap time with minimal risk, just to reduce that second gap. And so I was the first one in the car on the Friday, so I went out and then after 40 minutes boxed, came out the car, looked at the timing boards, and I was the quickest McLaren, quite high up overall as well, and I was just like, what? I didn't expect to sort of made those gains so quickly. And yeah, not everyone had done their times by then, sure, but come the end of the session, my time was much closer to the benchmark McLaren, probably like, I think it was 2 or 3 tenths off. So at this point, I was fully into the weekend. I was like, right, I felt comfortable, and yeah, we were competitive. So on Friday night, all the prep work was done. We were feeling really good. The setup was dialed in. We'd had a good amount of laps, all of us, me, Mark and Nikolai, all feeling relatively comfortable. Qualifying was on Saturday morning, followed by a 6-hour race in the evening. So yeah, let's see how it went. So I was in the first qualifying session out of the 3 sessions, and the session was going well. With 1 lap to go, I had a nice time on the board. I set a solid lap of a 2:02. It was only a couple of hundredths off the quickest McLaren, so it was right in the mix. But yeah, it was still 9 tenths off the overall quickest time. So I do think the BOP for the McLaren in qualifying wasn't great. And yeah, on my final lap, I was approaching T22. I was 3 tenths up and just pushed that a little bit too hard. Too much steering angle combined with too much throttle on the exit of T22. Lost the rear, almost hit the wall, and that was the lap over. So yeah, I was fuming. It would have been a high 59. All I had to do was just not overdrive, and it's exactly what I did. All the adrenaline or whatever, just pushed too hard. So yeah, annoyed I didn't execute it properly, but regardless of that, it was still P13 in the session, P1 in class, so it was still solid. And yeah, Mark and Nikolai both did a solid job in their qualifying sessions as well. So overall, we qualified P5 in class and then P31 out of all the 49 cars. So not too bad, better than our qualifyings at Spa and Monza. And yeah, we knew this was going to be a race of attrition, just with it being the first ever Jeddah GT3 race, 49 cars going around this really narrow track. There was bound to be accidents and safety cars and stuff. And yeah, the running order for the race was as follows. So Mark was going to start the race, then I was in for the second stint, then Nikolai was in for the third stint, and then after that it was really up in the air. It depended on where we were in the race, how we were getting on strategy wise. We just had to be very sort of flexible. So yeah, it was a surprisingly tame race start actually. There was no accidents for the first half an hour or so, which was very unexpected. So yeah, we underfueled the car in anticipation of a safety car. So at the end of Mark's stint, he had to do some extreme fuel saving to get to the end of the stint. So by doing that, we dropped quite a way back just because of the lack of pace. When you have to fuel save, you do lose a lot of time. But the car was in one piece and it was still on the lead lap in class, which was the main thing. So good damage limitation there by Mark. So yeah, I jumped in for the second stint, and as soon as I jumped in, literally one lap later, there was a massive shunt at T22. Two cars had an absolutely huge crash. And yeah, the full course yellow came out. So I was exiting turn 2, and there were two cars in front of me, and I started to slow down for the full course yellow, and the two cars in front of me weren't slowing down, so they were leaving it very, very late. And I looked up and they got it all wrong, shunted into each other. And I just remember all this water, radiator water, just bursting everywhere, carbon fibre everywhere, and it was quite a strange way to start the stint. So these two cars in front of me were shedding loads of debris everywhere, so I had to try and avoid the carbon fibre and stuff, so I didn't get a puncture. So very chaotic start to my stint. And yeah, this full course yellow lasted for about half an hour, so it was quite long. Then the safety car came out, and fortunately, because I was just on the lead lap in class, I got a wave by but with the safety car, which is basically where cars can unlap themselves or drive around the safety car and rejoin the back of the queue. So basically it meant we effectively got a lap back. That was massive for our race strategy wise. When the safety car came in, an absolutely mental stint ensued after that. I overtook from the back of the queue so many cars. I mean, more than I ever have in a real race before. Eventually ending up P2 in class, P13 overall, and yeah, it was just a mental stint. The car seemed way more competitive in the race than it did in qualifying, BOP wise. Balance wise, it felt hooked up. And yeah, I'm thinking of uploading, obviously I can't get that all into this video right now, but I'm thinking of uploading it as a raw, uncut video in itself. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you want to see that. And yeah, anyway, Mark got in for another stint, which was a really solid one, and then Nikolai jumped in after Mark. Again, really good stint, kept us in the mix. And yeah, during my time out of the car, I fortunately got the opportunity to go and get interviewed on the official GT World Challenge broadcast in what turned out to be John Watson's final commentary appearance. So yeah, that was pretty cool. He was a really nice guy actually. So I didn't know it was going to be his last one. So quite honoured to have spoken to him during that time. I then went to get some dinner and met Daniel Morad for the first time, and we had a really good conversation over dinner, just chatting about sim racing, and his car and the Mercedes was leading the overall race, and just chatting away. And it went on for about half an hour, and then I thought, right, I better get back to the garage. And as I walked back to the garage nice and chilled out, everyone was looking at me when I walked in like, where have you been? You're in the car in 5 minutes, blah. And literally I just, on a full stomach, got my helmet on, really stressed out, ready to get in the car, got in the car, and away I went for my second stint with a full stomach of like chicken, rice, it was a bit manic, and that's my bad. I let time get away from me there, and I should have been more on the ball. But yeah, the stint went well. There was no FCYs or safety cars or anything like that. It was a really clear stint. I basically caught and overtook and then gapped the P3 car in class, which was the Barwell Lamborghini driven by a gold driver. Pace seemed really, really good in this stint. And yeah, I'll show you guys my quickest lap from the race, which was in this stint, as I always do, just so you can appreciate how crazy this track is. So yeah, that lap was a 2-minute 0.5 on new tyres and full fuel, so sort of start of stint conditions. And when you take into account it's only 0.3 off my qualifying time, it felt like a pretty hooked up lap, to be honest. And you can see on your screens right now a lap chart that shows the driver pace from Jeddah. And yeah, it's pretty nuts that I was in the mix with some of the best drivers in the world. I mean, to summarise my pace, I was 29th out of the 128 drivers that took part in the race. I was the 5th quickest silver driver, the 3rd quickest McLaren driver. And yeah, honestly, on a grid of this level, the highest level of GT racing, I'll take that any day of the week. I mean, at this stage, with the lack of experience in the last few years, that's just mental. So yeah, anyways, away from that, back to the race. I then handed over the car to Nikolai for the final stint, and he would successfully bring it home for a mega result, P22 overall, but more importantly, P3, a podium in class. So an absolutely amazing result. Mine and Mark's first ever podium in GT World Challenge. Very, very happy. And yeah, to prove it, here is the bad boy trophy. So big, I'm struggling to get it into the camera lens, to be fair. There. It's still a little bit sticky and wet from the, I think it was apple juice that we sprayed on the podium. Obviously no alcohol out there in Saudi, but unbelievable. I've got a GT World Challenge trophy in my room now. Mental. So then, to summarise, seeing the progression from Spa to Monza and now Jeddah, with each race weekend I learned so much, which is why I think the improvements are so clear to see every single time I get in the car. So yeah, next year the goal is to be racing in a full campaign. And honestly, I think regular track time is everything. So if I can get that, I'm confident good things can happen from there. That's the next step. You know, I've had a good few appearances this year, but I need a full season. It's definitely the next step. And yeah, as always, a big shout out to my teammates Nikolai and Mark. They were fantastic all weekend. Loved working with them. And of course, a big thank you to Garage59 for letting me drive their McLaren 720S GT3 Evo for the second half of 2024. Basically half of the GT World Challenge Endurance Championship. So yeah, without them, none of this would have been possible. And yeah, so guys, I hope you enjoyed this little debrief from Jeddah. If you did, hit the like button and sub to the channel, of course. And I will catch you real soon. See you next time.